We will be having Sage, the Community Impact Officer at Maine Youth Action Network, and Sage will be chatting with us about engaging youth in prevention efforts. We're really excited to have her. We actually kind of asked her last minute, hey, like, would you be willing to do this webinar with us slash, be the presenter? And she immediately was really responsive and excited about it. So we're super appreciative of that. Hopefully some other folks will log on while we are chatting, but if not, I'm confident that we will have some great conversation and learning opportunities. So I will pass it over to Sage. I'll let Sage kind of do her own intro, but I will be keeping an eye on the chat. If folks are more comfortable asking questions in the chat, I'm sure you're welcome to just pop off mute as well. But yeah,
Perfect.
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here to have some conversations. And it looks like it's a small group, but that's wonderful because now we can go more in depth about some things. Um, I do have a history in public health. I worked in public health for, I don't know, over 8 years and recently got my master's. And now I'm at the Maine Youth Action Network. Yeah, doing a lot of youth engagement, but specifically around engaging adults who work with youth. So providing trainings and developing, yeah, different trainings for different organizations. We mold each training for the organization. So it's really to the organization's needs. But I would love to hear a little bit about who you are and do some introductions that way. So I would love if we could go around and share your name, your pronouns, your role, and then a value you bring to your work with young people. And I can put this in the chat. Um,
You can
yeah,
also pop it in the chat if that's easier. Let me know what you're thinking.
sure. I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Who wants to start? Did you share your value, Sage?
I
Do you want to
didn't.
start? Maybe you should
Um,
start.
yeah, I would love to. Um, yeah, so Sage, my pronouns are she, her. Um, my role is at the Maine Youth Action Network as the Community Impact Officer. And a value I bring to my work with young people is consistency, being able to show up. But yeah, I'll pass it. Oh, thank you for putting that.
I can jump in. I'm Regan Heber, she, her pronouns, and I'm on the tobacco prevention team here at Maine Health in York County, our District 1 MPM partners. And what a great question. Value that I bring. My immediate thought was optimism. Um,
Mm,
I think that that is a value that I bring to work with young people. But when I think specifically about the really close young people in my life, that of which I shouldn't say I'm responsible for, but that live under my roof, I like to think of myself as a soft place to land.
mm, thank you.
I'll jump in next. My name is Laura Cashel. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in substance use prevention, working for the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition and also part of the Maine Prevention Network. And the value I bring to working with young people, I'd say it's mattering. I just want to make sure that they know that they're seen, they're
Mm,
heard, they're valued, and they don't feel alone. And Regan, I was on a call last night, not to hijack this, but you mentioned something. It was all about tenderness from the Greater Good Science Center. You might want to check that out. It just kind of resonated well, kind of syncs up with what you were just saying.
love it.
Thank you, Laura. Susan, I know we can't see you, but if we'd love to hear you.
I can figure out how to be heard. So that's about all I can figure out. I have checked all the settings. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. However, my name is Susan Lombardo, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm a substance use counselor at RSU 21. I just started here in January. And value I bring to my work, I think truth.
Mm.
Knowing your truth, knowing the truth, thinking about things and do they make sense in my world? Is it a truth for me? Is this something that I need to consider more thoughtfully? So I hope them. Was I supposed to answer anything else?
No, that's great.
No.
Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate you all sharing the values that you bring to your work with young people because I think that's what grounds us, right? That's how we're walking into that space. And it is important for us to be able to share that with the young people that we're in space with, right? Like how are we showing up and in what way? Um, I will share a PowerPoint and we'll definitely come back to these values um as we go through this. Okay, y'all can see that, right? Perfect. So this is just the mission of the Maine Youth Action Network. We collaborate, convene, we partner to build young people's leadership on issues of social justice, public health, and restorative practices, and the capacity of adults, organizations, and systems to use positive youth development and social emotional learning principles in their work with youth, which is what we're going to focus a bit on today. Yeah, so these are the different kind of spheres of the work that we do. Um, and I won't go too in depth of that. I think you know a little bit about MYAN, but we have it up there. Um, so why adult training matters? Of course, like we just talked about these values and how, young people thrive when adults around them have the skills, awareness, and confidence to support youth leadership. Um, I think most people have great intentions when going into this space, but it's really helpful to be able to build our skills and to show up in our truth. Like I think what like Susan said, right? Like to show up in that way of not knowing everything, but being willing and keeping an open mind. Um, we do a lot of work at MYAN talking about like sharing power and what that looks like with young people and in different spaces. Um, so we're testing out some new training tracks at MYAN, and these are kind of our three tracks that I think we're going towards. I think the name of these will change, but the content will kind of stay the same around like community training, really that facilitation 101, school-based training um, is is just that. It's for working with schools, and then community professional training, and that really looks at the kind of overarching supports that organizations might need around policy development or procedures or how to support staff who work with young people. So a little different doing like reflective supervision and yeah, those different structures. But this gives kind of a background of what we're doing. Um, but curious, you all are here, so I so appreciate you all being here. And yeah, I would love to go through these questions just to see what you all are looking for. Normally, when we do trainings, right, we have conversations with the people that are receiving the training, so or the organizations who are providing it to see what people want. And I think we do that in smaller groups and workshops as well. So, are there any training topics that you would want offered that maybe I haven't highlighted?
I really want this topic that we're doing today. So I'm
Awesome.
excited that we're doing it because I just was thinking and
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I want to talk about like engagement. And then I was like, oh, I think that's why we're here. So
absolutely.
nothing else off the top of my head though. Like I feel like sometimes, and I don't know if this is true for others in the group, but I think a lot of the times we have gotten through trainings about like the skills and practiced
Mm,
scenarios and conversations. So sometimes it's just like, well, how can we get folks to the table? Because we all have, you know, like
absolutely.
lives and commitments and responsibilities. And so sometimes it, I think, can be challenging to, you know, have one more thing that we want to engage and have folks commit to. So it's good to always learn some strategies around engagement.
Absolutely. And we can stick on that topic moving forward because that's coming up in our questions. This talks about our youth leadership conference. We'll get back to that. I'll share information. But we want to get to the heart of this. Um, okay. Going into space with young people, right? It's important, like you said, we walk in with our truths and we want to be that, as you said, like a soft place to land. This is an activity that I do oftentimes with young people when we're sharing space. And some, I, it's not usually the opening thing that I do. So I want to be transparent with that. Sometimes it takes some relationship building before we move into something like this. But I feel like once you have that base, it's really helpful to like it builds stronger relationships if that space um yeah feels, I don't love using the word safe because that looks different for multiple people, but a space where um yeah people feel seen. So this is like the social identity wheel. It represents these different lenses that you see yourselves or others through. And what I like to do with young people is this is like really interactive, right? These lenses are posted up around the room. I'm asking people to move to these spaces when I ask the question. So an example is I would ask the first question and people would move to whatever lens that they feel answers that for them, not how other people see them, but just through their lens. So I would, yeah, offer you all to join me in this. We can, yeah. So thinking of this, right? Identities you think about most often, where would you go? What lens would represent that?
For me, and I mean, I don't need to, I guess, go into the why, but I feel like I was immediately kind of jumped to like gender,
Mm-hmm.
age, physical, emotional development, things that maybe are easy to see on the outside or assume on
Mm,
about me. That I often think, oh, I assume people identify me with those things. So therefore, I think they're on my mind a lot.
got it. Yeah, thank you. And just to provide a little more background, how we engage young people is really important. From the spaces that we've been in with youth recently, these are the topics that are front of mind for them. These are the identities that they're walking in different spaces in, right? And this is what they're thinking of. We did a tree activity at Mountain Valley High School where, you come up with an issue that's the trunk, the roots are, what causes that, and the leaves are what you see from that issue. whether it's in community or otherwise. And the topics that they picked, yeah, weren't much different than what we see in the news or what's being talked about. So it's it is important to walk into a space and know where you're coming from, as well as like how to have these conversations with young people, because it is really engaging, whether it's around prevention, right? Because so many of these identities are going to come through with that, right? Um, yeah, and the different power dynamics around it. But yeah, would anyone else like to share the first one?
I'm making eyes at you all. I want one of you to participate.
And it's all good. Normally we do a lot of relationship building before this, so this is an ask for you all to step into that space. And I think it's normally I spend time like talking through each of these identities and we go through that. So just yeah, making making us aware of that. Um, I think an important one is your own identities that you would like to learn more about, and this can just be reflective. You don't need to share, um, but just wanting you to think about those things as we move into this conversation.
I really like Laura's comment in the chat.
Oh,
Just the age, because I'm probably the same age as youth's grandparents or parents. And I have to say, thinking about it in that lens, that is a insecurity of mine as an adult working with young people.
mhm,
When I think about the identities I'd like to learn more about, it is about all of the identities that youth identify with, because I do find that I have my own insecurities of not being able to relate and therefore
mm,
understand. And so I think age is such a great one to consider, because I do think about like, how can I reach or be there or support these young people when I may not quite understand their, what identities are important to them, or what they, you know what I mean? And so anyway, I just think that I know I can ask those things and just be there, but I really love, Laura, how the way you just framed it in the chat made me realize, like, yeah, I think I have a lot of my own biases or my own
mm,
insecurities around working with young people that I would like to unpack a little bit more and break down a little bit more and let go of a little bit more, so that I can show up for them better.
absolutely. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Um, I do want to move us to what a mentor mindset is and how we go, um, yeah, where we sit in this continuum here. So the high standards and high support is when you're in a mentor mindset. The low standards and high support is that protector mindset. Um, And you can see that there's a scale, right? You can be on either one. What I would love for you to do is kind of take a moment and think through where you fall within this and have an example of what that would look like. Does that make sense? Great. Awesome. Um, Perfect. So I'll give a few minutes for you to kind of think about where you would be on that continuum, and we'll come back together. Hey y'all. Okay, let's check in. Where are we in this mentor mindset? Where do we think we fall?
Think that sometimes I fall into the protector mindset. Like, I want to be really supportive, but I don't want to add too much like pressure or have unrealistic expectations. I think it's easy to bring our own like experiences and feelings into how we support youth. So like maybe I think about like, oh, I could have used more support when I was young, but the expectations were too high of me. So then I think I can accidentally maybe lean into more of a protector than a mentor.
Absolutely. And I think too, right? When we're working on engaging youth, we might be more of the protector mindset, right? Like, I'm going to create any sort of option for them to engage and provide as much support as possible. And then, like, this isn't just a, like, I'm here and I'll always be here. Like, this, you can move within this, right? Continuum. And that might move like, okay, people showed up, I can hand over responsibility to the young person, to where it's more of a mentor mindset than maybe a protector mindset. And so there is that ebb and flow there. Um, but I think from, yeah, even my own childhood, like I can think of, you know, teachers or coaches that vary on this continuum where they're more of the enforcer mindset, like really high standards and kind of like you figure it out. But yeah, curious of, other people's experiences, looking in the chat as well. Yeah. So default to still wanting to ensure youth are safe. Yep. Mm. Yeah, sharing the knowledge of lived experience with them. Um, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Um, Wonderful. Anything else before we move on from this specific topic? Yeah, really wanting to step into that space of engagement being healing centered. And that the term, as many of you all might know, is going from trauma informed to healing centered. So really in that like action of no, we're actively healing and this is where we are. But that term has seemed to shift, right? From trauma informed to healing centered. And yeah, the five parts of that are agency. And I think we talked about that. So, how we're supporting the development of youth voice to encourage that agency of, thinking of engagement of like, oh, people aren't showing up or I don't know how to get in contact with them. Not putting it on their plates, but asking them to step in that space with you. Um, so co-creating things like, oh, I can help support, getting these numbers of people that want to be involved, but can you send out the message to these young people? As an example. Um, yeah, the culture having restorative conversations about identity. I think that's where we started, right? Looking through those different lenses and knowing that we all show up to space differently. Um, Yeah. And this is how we, I think, walked into this space of like how we're creating relationships and spaces to be vulnerable and empathetic. Um, yeah. Meaning is one that was brought up as well, like mattering, remembering your purpose. So starting with your values and kind of centering those values. and setting goals. That's like, where do you want this group to go? What does this engagement mean? Like, what's the purpose of that engagement? And um, who's not at the table in these conversations, even about what the topics are that we're presenting. I I know from experience doing prevention work, sometimes you have that cookie cutter, like, hey, you have to do this program. How, yes, we have to do that program. And what can we bring to that program? Um, that's what the youth want or need, right? And I think it's having those conversations with, they're not always easy. Um, Yeah, I'm curious of where that sits with you all, knowing that, there's different programs that are kind of cookie cutter and prescribed. Even the topics, right? We're talking about substance use prevention. And it's like, how do you bring that into space that that has all five parts of this?
The word that came to mind when you first brought this up and
Mm,
started talking about it was just like communication, right?
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times, I feel like a lot of times I might overthink what
Mm,
is needed of me when it comes to youth engagement, whereas sometimes it's really just being there and maybe delivering a message or delivering a few questions and allowing the space and communication to come up
mm,
however it does. So, I mean, that's what I know that maybe doesn't answer your question, but that when I first saw this, I thought to myself, like communication, right? And the other thing I'll say about this is that I feel like I appreciate the value that you shared at the beginning of consistency because I do think that when working with young people, there is a need for building trust. And I think that takes a lot of time and consistency. And, um, that I think that can be tricky,
mm.
especially in prevention efforts and the work that we do and staff turnover. And so, yeah, I just want to acknowledge those couple things that are coming to mind for me. And I mean, I even think about that for like school staff, right? And so if you're
Mm.
working in a school, sometimes that is, you have a lot of different things on your plate too. And so understanding what you're coming to the table with, when you're engaging and, you know, also thinking about turnover from that lens as well, like in a school.
Yeah, I think those are all important points of, yeah, how do you keep that consistency going through hardships or not, right? Whether that's personal or their staff turnover. And it's like, how does the organization hold that space for young people, right? Knowing that there could be staff turnover. But what does that mean for relationships and how are you mending those in the process? Um, yeah, walking into that space being transparent as well is is tough and it's not easy to build that structure of support. Yeah.
I'll just jump in here and add
Yeah.
that, we're talking about staying healing centered and remaining trauma informed and just trying to be trusted adults for youth. I think the point that you just made with Regan is even more valid, where I could be going into school periodically to do
Mm,
substance use prevention, where the teachers are there day in, day out. They are the trusted adults. They are the relationships that those youth truly need and rely on. So when there's turnover on a school level, that's even more detrimental because we don't know what all the youth are dealing with on an individual level. And, they may just really need that consistent relationship. And if there's staff turnover, it could be more detrimental, which would then make our jobs that much more difficult as well.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
then one other layer that I'll add, um, or that one other thing that I'll share, and then maybe it goes back to your original question about like what trainings are needed. And
mm,
I think that it's really important for school staff and all of us, I mean, anyone every day, to be taking care of ourselves and understanding our when you talk about, trauma informed or healing center, like just
hmm
understanding what that means. And again, what kinds of things every individual is facing each day and that they bring that to the table with them, right? And so being able to engage in self-care practices that support their own well-being, therefore in turn, I think helps us all support those people around us. So how important it is for us to be able to provide those opportunities for our school staff and
hmm
or the community at large, really.
Absolutely. And it's, yeah, having those kind of transparent conversations about capacity and support and the reality of the situations, right? Of like, we don't have the funding for somebody to stay later, or you're doing that on your own time. And what does that mean for you personally if it was at school and you're staying after with a student or whatever, and what's the impact of that? And it's having those real conversations around, what do I need? What does this youth need? And what different structures are needed for this school to be that space for young people. Um, and I think it looks different when it's an after school program, right? That you're going in maybe on a semi-regular basis, or maybe it has a deadline of like, okay, or an endpoint. And it's like, what does that look like for those young people? How are they able to stay connected with you? Because I do feel like that relationship building is the core to engagement once they're there, or how you show up to space. And a lot of it's word of mouth. So it's like, okay, if you show up on a regular basis, it's there, that, that space is there, it's being held. These young people go and they're able to share that. They're like, oh yeah, I went there, or I go and see them, or these are the conversations we're having. And I think that's when it's tough, right? With substance use prevention is when young people really relate to that. Um, and you're talking about their lived experience or their community that is impacted by that. And I think owning that space of, I'm impacted too because we're in community. So what are we going to do together? Um, yeah, and creating opportunity for them to be involved in that way. I think, oh yeah, there's more in the chat. Okay. Mm, yeah, self-care capacity. Yeah. It's a tough one, keeping your own cup completely filled. It's not easy. I'm a yes person. I say yes to so many things. And sometimes I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I sign up for all these things and do all this? But at the same time, it's like, okay, I can go back to my values and be like, no, this has meaning for me. I want to be in this space. And ultimately it is filling my cup and I need to rest. I think owning that too is important. Um, yeah, so this goes in a little deeper with being trauma informed or healing centered. Trauma informed is more like what happened to you, while healing centered is what is right with you. And really kind of staying um on that track of like, no, we're actively in this space together of healing and what that looks like. Um, Yeah, and I think considering the environmental context is really important. Um, thinking of that community space and what that looks like. Yeah, positive youth development is something that we think is core to um, the way in which we engage youth with. That makes sense? Yeah. Um, and these are, yeah, what we want to help instill in young people. I think in space a lot with young people, something that's come up a lot is empathy and what that looks like and how it's created. And yeah, a lot that's come up is how young people feel like people are desensitized to things due to what they see on the internet and on social media, and kind of going back to like, okay, what is that core value there, and how are we going to share space? And yeah, kind of comes down to empathy. Um, yeah, these are so important to the developmental relationships, right? And this is the framework around that. So how we're sharing power, and we talked about that a little bit, is, what works best for young people to be in space together. Is that changing a date or a time of a meeting, or maybe it's a different topic, right? That young people may want to focus on instead of the topic that you had planned that day? And how are you relating it back to the topic that you need to discuss? Um, yeah, how you're expressing care. You really want to challenge their growth, and how you want to provide support, and thinking of that as the mentor mindset as well, of like, okay, I'm creating support, but also I'm holding a boundary or having those high standards.
Susan in the chat said a lot more emphasis would be best spent on contribution. Our young people have a lot to offer.
Absolutely. So it's that like co-creation of, yeah, having young people be in that space of creating, and, you know, as we said before, their lived experience and what they're coming in space with, I think is really important. Um, yeah, so this was, or is, right? Curious of where this lands with you all. Um, so reading the sentence and filling in the blanks. Given that young people are blank, sorry, the best way to motivate them is to, what would you fill in the blanks with? And would anyone want to share what they wrote? Ooh, energetic. Okay. Ooh, okay. Curious. Give them voice, space, and choice.
Mine is given that young people are our future, the best way to motivate them is to empower them.
Absolutely. Yeah, giving them ownership. Love it. These are great. Yeah, it is. The power dynamics are so interesting with young people, right? Like there's parts that we want to make sure that we're not putting too much on young people to make all these decisions and to be involved in everything, but also knowing that, they have agency, or they should have agency in some of these decisions that are going to impact them um, in the future, right? Or in the now. And I think that piece is really important. Um, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this is similar to the mentor mindset of where we want to be in space with young people. Um, So we want to provide that support and set those expectations. And this is kind of where the mentor mindset is, right? It's with, so it's that restorative piece. So putting this into action, yeah, where we want to be. If there's a stressful situation, because that looks different, right? Where you want to be, whether you're going to move into that protector mindset or whether you can stay in that mentor mindset. So just thinking of, if a stressful situation comes up, where would you be um, in that process? And where would you want to go?
Sage, would you be willing to, or maybe we could all like brainstorm around, like,
Mm,
and maybe you're gonna get there, but like going back to that last slide that you
yeah.
were sharing. So like an example of a stressful situation and as a adult supporting a young person or someone using a mentor mindset, like what would be an example of
Mm,
like a stressful situation and then reacting with a mentor mindset or reacting with a protector mindset or reacting with an enforcer mindset. Like, would you be willing to elaborate on that just a little bit to
absolutely.
help me, give me some context around that?
Yeah. So an example might be you have a youth group and you're getting ready for a conference and they agreed that they wanted to host a workshop and they needed to work on a presentation for that workshop and an activity to go with it. You've had multiple meetings and they seem to get sidetracked in a way that they're not getting a lot of work done, but they're talking about the work that needs to be done. And you're in the mentor mindset, but you're feeling the stress of it, right? The deadline's coming. You're the one that's supporting this group, right? Supporting this workshop. And you're worried that the presentation won't get done in time and that they'll show up to this workshop and have a bad experience facilitating because they won't be prepared. And that's kind of where you are. You know, let's say you're 3 days out. You haven't seen the presentation. You know it's started, but it's not finished. Where do you go in this mindset?
Probably like, okay, what are we going to do about this? Right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, we've got to see some action here and probably, um, yeah, I mean, when it says maintain impossible demands or maybe lower demands, like, I don't know, like I probably would be like, okay, what are we going to reasonably accomplish here? But with a mentor mindset, what you're saying is to increase the resources.
Yeah. So that could look like, right? Um, Maybe you put together the template of the presentation, right? So they're not starting it from scratch.
Hmm.
Like maybe they're adding, their materials, but otherwise, you provided a template for them and resources. And maybe even you created the space for them to meet extra to get this done. But at what point might you go into the protector mindset and lower demands? And maybe that's doing the presentation for them, like creating it. And that's what I would kind of see that as not taking over, but stepping in, right? So with the mentor mindset, you're providing all the resources they need to accomplish this.
The
And
structure, kind of.
yeah, absolutely. And the enforcer mindset of like, I need this done, or I need 5 slides finished on I don't know, in a day. Like you need to do it this by tomorrow. Um, but maybe they don't have that ability to connect otherwise. Um, yeah, so kind of seeing where you are in that realm. But what are some ideas? How would you handle that situation?
It makes me wonder if there are times when leaning into something other than the mentor mindset could be useful. And maybe not leaning in fully, but maybe dipping your toes in. I think sometimes we do have to say, hey, maybe this is a little protector and a little enforcer. We don't get this done, your presentation might not get done and you might not get a good grade. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think of stressful situations that are like either personal or like out of someone's control. And it's like, yeah, at that point, like if people are really upset or, things aren't going to move forward, that protector mindset makes sense, right? Like you're being empathetic. And maybe in the moment it won't get done, right? But down the road and shifting more into the mentor mindset, it's like you're going to debrief that. You're going to go through that process and be like, okay, what would help next time? Right? This is too stressful of a situation to move forward, and I don't think it's beneficial. But debriefing that and making a plan for the future so you can stay in that like mentor mindset of like, no, we agreed, like this is what we're gonna do moving forward if we ever get to that, yeah, in that situation again.
And I have a thought too, and I
Sure.
just I don't want to monopolize this either, but I am working with a youth group and they're working on I'm working with about 10 youth and three of them are working on presenting a idea to the rest of the group.
Mm,
And we're supposed to meet this week and they like forgot what they're presenting on. So it's one of those things where, um, and rightfully so. I mean, we meet monthly and they have other things going on and they have other groups that they're part of. And so I get that. And so what I've found is like being really like going back to consistency and being like I send notes from the
mm,
prior meeting. I make sure I take notes from the meeting. I send notes prior to the meeting to remind them of the things that they're going to do. And then as their adult sort of leader, I have plan B so that if for whatever reason they're not going to be able to deliver on what they said that they wanted to do, we have a plan B. So I'm giving them ample time to still create a little
mm,
presentation should they want to, given the notes and a reminder to do so. But in the event that that feels like too much pressure for them, we can always take it in another direction. So just like, I feel like it kind of goes back to like the consistency and clear expectations and things like that, but also like having the flexibility and it
mm,
kind of being that soft place to land. Like there isn't going to be a penalty for not doing this. We're just going to sort of shift, but setting up all those sort of guardrails to keep us on track-ish, I guess,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, does. Thank you. I think this relates to this topic that we're discussing right now of um yeah, what this looks like. I don't want to get no. We'll stay here. Um but I wanted to hold space for the opportunity to talk through what engagement looks like currently in your spaces of youth groups or in schools and have that opportunity to workshop some of those issues together in this space. So I'm curious, um, where are you in your youth engagement journey?
Challenge that I've had in my youth engagement journey is um, so when I'm working with youth, they are like, I don't have kiddos of my own or anything. So when I'm working with youth, it's in a professional setting. And I think that sometimes there can be like great plans of action and youth can be on board, but when you're relying on an outside entity like a school to get back to you about scheduling space or having you in, I think that's when things have kind of, I don't want to say fallen apart for me, but I feel like I've had a few times I've been able to meet with groups of young people and it's gone really well. And then um, when it came to, scheduling those additional times or additional plans, I wasn't able to get some of the follow through that I needed. And then I feel like to the youth who I don't necessarily communicate directly with, it might look like I just stopped caring and stopped showing up, or I found something better to do. And um, that's been hard for me, not necessarily something we can address as a group here, but that feels like frustrating is I guess when there's so many moving pieces and factors that it's like I can't just show up and be there. I don't work at the school. So like what other groups maybe can I work with or what other ways can I try to like I feel like I have the rapport with the school,
Hmm.
but it's like where is this getting lost in translation?
Yeah, that's a tough one around capacity of the organization that you're working with, but knowing that it's impacting the relationship that you have, and like you said, the rapport that you built with the youth, um, and working through that. Yeah. Anyone else?
What Alyssa just said, that's really challenging because you put in
Hmm.
so much time and effort, so much of your heart, and that you care and you build those relationships. And then all of a sudden, there's this external boundary that you can't control, and you also can't explain why you're no longer present. So it's just a challenge we all face to a certain degree because we're not in control of maintaining that relationship or scheduling that relationship at the frequency or um, continuous continuation that we would prefer.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
What's
luckily
something that,
Oh,
oh, go
just
ahead.
gonna say we have a lot of great folks we work with, like Susan, who's on our webinar. That Susan is so responsive and always collaborates with me, and so I love that. And I think all our schools are really great. That certainly wasn't a knock at any school or any staff member, but just an acknowledgement that we do have some really great school folks and school partners, and without them, we probably wouldn't be able to do as much as we do with youth or to support them. So thanks to our school staff.
Absolutely. Um, and I think it goes bigger than that too, right? Like if we know there's funding for these opportunities to work with youth and that funding ends, that's something similar, right? Of like that's kind of out of our control of the role in which we're working in. And as we know, sometimes there's parameters around like, oh, this is a 1 year contract. So being able to be transparent with youth is great of like, hey, we're doing this for a year, but when you don't always have that opportunity to have that conversation, or even, you know, maybe it ends all of a sudden, then, you don't have that opportunity to explain, that makes things really difficult to navigate. Yeah. Are there positive things that have worked well? Close this. Stop sharing for a moment. What has worked well for engaging youth in your space? Like, what's one success that you've had?
Regan says bring snacks.
Yeah, absolutely. But does funding always allow that? Probably not. But when you can, that's one that I did. Yeah, when I was hosting a youth group, I was like, no, I'm bringing snacks. I'm gonna cook something and bring it in. And luckily, the place allowed that, so that was big. But getting creative in that way, definitely. Oftentimes I met at odd times, if that makes sense. Like meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening because that's when sports got out and that's when they were available. And they were kind of determined. They were like, no way, like we'll show up for that. Um, Great, making that work, but also holding that capacity. Ooh, that's a good one. Host during their lunchtime and encourage them to bring lunch. That's great. Absolutely. How are you reaching the young people that you want in space? Bring a friend with you. Yeah, that word of mouth is important.
I feel like I ask a lot of questions. Like,
Yeah.
I know we were discussing earlier, a lot of times, especially with grant funded programming, there are certain requirements that need to be met.
Mm,
But I like to try to be flexible and see how things can be met while still giving a little bit of like autonomy to the group. Like, okay, we're gonna, do this group discussion, but maybe someone comes up and is like, can you be in my group? And in my head, I was picturing the young people talk to each other. I'm like, sure, yeah. Are like, as long as we're talking about this topic, I'm happy to be in a group with you. Um, like giving sort of some flexibility around how we're getting the thing done.
mm. I'm curious, what are some of the goals of the youth groups that you're supporting or that you're holding?
More recently, one was like project based.
Hmm.
So we had a group that was supporting us with a project that ended up kind of shifting gears, unfortunately, but a student council group was supporting with like design and promotion and implementation of a safe vape disposal unit. So like a
Oh,
way
interesting.
to
Yeah.
kind of ditch vapes and promote and access treatment. But unfortunately, that was kind of one of those situations where the project shifted gears and I was unable to hear back from that particular group at this time to be able to go back and keep working with them when the project shifted gears. So that was kind of hard for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We host a annual youth summit where
Mhm.
we invite high schoolers from all over York County to come for a full day sort of professional development opportunity for them. And that's been successful in the last couple of years, and we bring health related topics and prevention related topics to that full day. This last year we did a wellness wheel experience with them where they got to think about all of their dimensions of health and if there was an area that they identified that they wanted to work on. And then throughout the day, we gave them some opportunities to work on that area or to
Mm,
gain some resources around that area. We gleaned some feedback from that from the youth that were there. And then as another example of a project that we did was we took that survey data and we asked a digital design class at one of the high schools that we're working with to take that data, analyze it, and create a digital flyer
hmm.
highlighting that data. So they were not at the youth summit, most of them, I don't think. But they were able to see what their peers were saying about health related topics and what mattered to them. So that was another project. And then the middle school group that I'm working with, um, we meet monthly and we've been meeting for 3 months now. This is just got started, but really it's been identifying what community health is to them and then
Okay.
identifying their school as their community and how they want to show like what are health related topics in their school that are important to them and what projects might they want to work on as a youth advisory board. And so one thing that they're working on right now is presenting to the rest of the group this idea of doing a screen time awareness survey just to make their peers or that what they want out of it is to make their peers aware of how much they're using their screens and then the impact of screens on mental health. And so there's some different projects that they're working on, but it's all really with them, it's very much so youth led. And so
Mm,
this is something that we've gleaned out of our meetings, but that can quickly shift too. And there may be something else that they prioritize.
yeah, that's great. I love that it's yeah, youth led in that aspect, but does make things challenging if they shift quickly. So yeah, that's great. Are they choosing like the times that they meet and like how in which they're meeting, or was that kind of the structure that was provided um in their like in them joining?
I created a flyer and sent it to the principal of that. Like the principal and I talked about this being a good opportunity for some of the
Mm,
students there. And so I just created a flyer like join this youth advisory board to talk about health related topics. And they set the time to be during lunch. It was going to be during lunchtime
nice.
and they could bring their lunch with them. And there were 10 youth that volunteered to be part of the group. Um, and so they've consistently been there for the last 3 months.
That's great. I love that idea of meeting during lunch because yeah, they have it's not outside of their, what they're already doing. And for the most part, they would have food available. So that's wonderful. Great idea. Anyone else have engagement strategies that are helpful or that have worked well and the goals in which your group is working on? I know for the conference, we're working with facilitators, so those that will be leading the high school track of the Maine Youth Leadership Conference, hosting dialogue sessions. We were in need of 20 facilitators, young adults, 18 to like 25-ish. And holy cow, we were on a time crunch to get these facilitators kind of trained up and connected. And that was a struggle for engagement. And I think looking back, we'd want more time to be able to kind of build those relationships and reach out to partners of organizations to have them nominate young adults who might be a good fit, who have experience facilitating. Um, but that's something we leaned heavily on. We're partners to do that outreach and to be connected with young people. And yeah, I would say that's still a struggle. We're less than like 3 weeks out, and we have like 15, um, which is good. But having more time to be able to engage with them and do relationship building is really important, especially if we're just meeting virtually. Um, so that creates some challenge. And as I was saying in the beginning of the this time, yeah, I set the time and the day, which I know made things really challenging for some. And if I were to look at that mentor mindset, I would, yeah, that's not ideal, right? It would have been relationship building and picking a day and time that worked best for most, at least. But I think that's another example of when we'd, move or shift if there's that stressful situation. But yeah, gosh. Amazing. Um, and I think, talking about engagement, I've seen this in some of the work that we do at MYAN is we have the opportunity to pay young people for their involvement, for their participation, for their contribution. So whenever that's possible, I think that's really important, especially around when you have those clear guidelines or roles of that young person, to where it feels like they're a part of something, right? That that their contribution is valued in a way. Um, doesn't always have to be about money, but I think it's important when people are putting in like a lot of time to to get some sort of um, yeah, payment for that. Um, with the young people that you work with, and I'll just share this as we're, oh, sorry. Yeah, it is really challenging when you can't provide food or, yeah, due to grant requirements. And I think we highlighted that a little, but um, it is, yeah, sometimes I think it's impossible. Like, how are we going to get these young people in these spaces without providing any of them? And some things that, I know organizations have done in the past is being able to um, partner with other organizations where they're able to either provide like a cooking class where they get to eat and you kind of add in your meeting with their meeting where they're getting provided food, or if there's other organizations that you can partner with that can offer incentives. And it's not always ideal, right? Like that it impacts numbers or yeah, or getting donations, and that's yeah, local businesses, Rotary clubs, etc., for donations and support efforts. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and if at all possible, like asking the youth. I know some of them like to cook or like to bring things to share. And if that's a possibility and young people are willing, like, oh yeah, we'll have a potluck or we'll bring snacks for everyone. If if that's in their ability to do, I think it's yeah, it's open. And brainstorming that with young people too, of like, how can we make this space more inviting? Um, Yeah, I know I skipped over this earlier, but I just wanted to highlight it before our time because I do think it's a great opportunity for adults as well as young people and youth groups is our Youth Leadership Conference. Our registration closes this Friday, so you have young people interested, if you're interested in hosting a workshop or tabling or being a part of our expo, please, I can put the link in the chat as well. But yeah, it's March 19th and 20th. It's coming right up. But the slogan is the state of the youth is the state of the world. And it's really impactful. I got to spend time with the ambassadors who are planning the conference, and they're really thinking of everything, of what it looks like to make this a really engaging space for everyone and making sure that people's identities are represented in this space and their different lenses. So similar to what we've discussed, this is a not pretty version of our agenda, but it looks different for the three different tracks. So we're basically hosting two conferences, one for high school age youth and one for middle school age youth. And then we have that adult track for advisors. And there's food trucks on Friday. So if that's an incentive for young people, yeah, I don't know. They'll be eating at food trucks.
Yeah, if you wanted to email me the flyer, I can include it in like meeting
Perfect.
notes for,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you can email me whatever you want me to include. I'll make sure that it goes to the folks who registered and were not able to be here today as well, so that hopefully they can view this recording and explore these resources and share them as well.
perfect.
Thank you.
And I think to move into closing, and it's really, I would love to know what we do like the mind, body, feet. Like what are you thinking about? And I can put this in the chat. What are you thinking about after this? What are you feeling and what are you walking away with?
I'm thinking about how I can engage youth in a different way or on a different platform. I feel like I've maybe let myself spend some time being frustrated about the groups that didn't work. And so, how can I move on from that and try again?
Mm,
Maybe with a different group or a different setting, or maybe that same group again. You know, people are busy. I don't think anyone like intentionally, didn't get back to me, but maybe how can I try again is what I'm thinking. And yeah, that's the one I'm going to answer.
perfect. Thank you. I think something that I'm thinking about is what how to stay connected with youth, or how to enter in space, letting them know that if I didn't come back due to reasons outside of my control, um, yeah, letting them know, I guess, ahead of time, but not wanting to put it out there like, hey, I might not show up tomorrow. But I think that's really important. And I think that, yeah, that would sit heavy with me as well. So I think going in there, asking for some grace, I think in that instance. Okay, so we have things in the chat. When I know better, I can do better. Knowledge is power, and sharing experiences with other adults working with youth. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Mm, yeah. I think a network and support is so important, and being able to share space with each other and to yeah, to problem solve together, and entering in those opportunities when you can is really important. I know it's validating for me, but it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? Why isn't this working? But knowing it's happening to others as well. But yeah, I really, yeah, just appreciate your all's showing up and time. This is my information, and this is MYAN's socials and website. You can find more information about our conference on there, and we'll share the flyer. But please reach out. We love doing trainings in person when possible. So if you're of interest in any of those, we're happy to meet with you and discuss what goals you'd like to see. But yeah,
Thank you, Sage.
of course. Thank
so
you.
much.
And I can hang on for a few more minutes and we can answer